Many rivers all converging to that one unchanging source of our lives. I love that vision. Makes me feel all warm and smooshy inside. How about you guys? But when I heard this song about 4 weeks ago, it also brought up for me some questions. How did we get separated in the first place? How did we create all those rivers? If we come from one source, how do we get so separated? And then, how do we get back? How do we get back in that river? Do we just pray and hope that we get there? Or do we actually get to participate in that process in a much more active way? Well, I thought about it for a while, and I think I have an answer or two or three. You want to know what they are? Okay. Well, I got to start with a story first. And that is that when I was a little girl, my father sold appliances and repaired appliances. And we were the proud recipients, because he sold and repaired appliances, of huge cardboard boxes. Great big refrigerator boxes. You know what I'm talking about, right? Remember how they made your heart sing? Did you all play in boxes when you were kids? Oh my gosh, it was fabulous, playing in the boxes. Yeah. I remember crawling into that box, and that was when I was even littler than I am now. So you can imagine how little that was. And it felt like a boxcar, you know, just having my own safe space to be in, kind of dark. My dad would cut little windows in it for me, little doors, would color on the walls. It was a great place to be in. It was wonderful. And then I started growing up. And we all grow up and we give up our boxes. At least our cardboard boxes. At least our hard corrugated cardboard boxes. But I don't know about y'all, but then I started out building my own box because I still wanted to be safe. I just really wanted to be safe. So I liked the idea of my own corner of the world. So I started building walls. And my walls looked kind of like this. Kind of like, I'm too little. I'm not smart enough. I can't trust them. I can't do that. They shouldn't do that. I couldn't possibly do this. I can't imagine why they would. Are you hearing me? Do you guys have walls like that just a little bit? Kind of building that wall, those boxes. Yeah. So some of our boxes are kind of wobbly, and some of them are reinforced concrete. You know what I'm talking about. Reinforced, those walls are never coming down. And before we get all guilty and defensive about all of this, because you know that happens, right? Well, of course we have boxes. We have to have boxes. But the point is, yes, we need some structure around us in order to function in the world. But I believe, and I think many of us will agree, that sometimes we got a little bit too much structure around us. Sometimes we're just stuck in ourselves, in our boxes, a little bit too much. But those boxes have helped us survive. They've helped keep us safe. They've helped us function in the world. So, where did those boxes come from? Where did they come from? We come from undifferentiated source, right? Isn't that what Fillmore teaches? We are one in God. Everything comes from substance, this stuff. Scientists are even acknowledging that now. They're saying, you know what? Down below all this material stuff that we're dealing with, there's this energy. And out of that energy materializes everything. It's that void. It's the same void out of which Genesis Genesis talks about. That same void out of which God created the world. Oh, isn't that exciting? You guys, come on, think about this. The scientists are acknowledging the void. And it was in Genesis a long, long time ago. And then out of that void, God decided that he would build a wall. And he created light and dark. And then there was another wall. There was the sea and the sky. And then there was another wall. There was the sea and land. And then another wall. Really, God, come on. Could we not have just stayed in the undifferentiated space? But no, we created another God, another space, another beingness. We created life. God created life. So that was kind of a good thing, because without that, we wouldn't be here. And we have continued to differentiate over the years. And humankind, as beings in the world, differentiate. When we're born, we're just these little lovely, gorgeous little blobs. But we know nothing. We can't even voice our needs. All we can do is cry. And then something happens and we feel better, so we stop crying and we sleep. And then we get uncomfortable again, and so then we cry. And then something happens and we go back to sleep. We don't know what that is. We don't know that we've got mommy out there and daddy out there until we start to be in the world a little bit longer, and we start kind of putting the pieces together, and we start to recognize mommy and we start to recognize daddy. And then suddenly we hit about 2 years old, and then something amazing happens. And all of you parents out there know what that is. It's called the terrible twos. And suddenly, this adorable little child that you had is going, me, mine, no, mine, no, mine. That child is differentiating. It's finally figuring out who it is. And that's what we all do, and we continue to do that. I did it even from my sisters. I shared a double bed with my little sister when we were kids, and both of us were pretty little. And so you have to keep in mind that we didn't really need much of that bed. It was a double bed. We took up maybe a quarter of that bed. But we had to have our own side of the bed. We needed to partition off that space, because that was my space, and you could not come into my space. And again, it's not all bad. We have to learn to become individuals. But as we're growing, a lot of our beliefs are instilled by us by people who don't really understand either. It's not their fault. It's just the way it is. And sometimes we mistakenly draw conclusions about our experiences in the world, about our environment in the world, that causes us to form non-serving beliefs. And a lot of our walls are reinforced by non-serving beliefs. And those non-serving beliefs keep us on the shore of the river. Remember that lovely river that was flowing? It keeps us on the shore of the river. Those boxes, you can't go into the river in a box. And interestingly, one of the biggest separations that we experience, one of the most non-serving beliefs, I believe, that we come up against as we grow into ourselves, is the fact that we are separate from our source. Despite the fact that we come from this amazing, undifferentiated source in our lives, we somehow forget that, and we decide that we are separate, because we are told that we are separate. We're not told about how much abundance we have because we are amazing creations of God. We're told that we have to be safe. We have to be safe. We have to be careful. And all those beliefs that were instilled in us were to keep us safe. But it was because there was a lack of belief in the safety of that allness that we are. So we're no longer aware of the infinite potential that we are. And we develop fear and doubt. We develop that box. That box protects our life. It makes us think we're safe, but we are separated from God. So that's how our box is formed. All of those false beliefs just kind of getting on there and growing up and fitting around us. We got this box now. So what, you say? I like my box. It's very, very comfortable. And yes, I feel very safe. And I really like to feel safe. And I've got God in my box right here with me. I do. Got God right here. Think for a moment. Just imagine yourselves all in boxes, each one of you sitting in one of these chairs, and you got this big old square cardboard box, your head's sticking out the top, your arms are here. And then I said, let's get up and hug. Did you see the picture? Do you see what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, we're going to bump into each other. We can't hug. We can barely talk to each other, right? We can't get close enough to talk. We bump into each other. We might even fall over. Yeah, it's those boxes. A lot of us even say, I know I'm not separate. I know that God lives in every person I see. I know that. But we're still bumping into people. We're bumping into other people's boxes. We're falling over. We're feeling separated. So how can we know this and still feel separated? Well, knowing's in our head. Knowing is our mind. Knowing is our understanding. We read about it, and we get it on an intellectual basis. But how many of us truly experience God? How many of us really know what that feels like? Yeah, in meditation, sometimes we go to that place where we get all kind of floaty and nice. But I don't really believe that that's even experiencing God. Because if that's experiencing God, and you guys are God, why don't I feel all floaty and happy and nice when I experience you? It's because I got the wrong picture of God. We have made God into a concept. This concept like time or like math. But God isn't that. God is experience. We don't experience time, really. We look at a watch and go, oh, that was 2 minutes. But we don't experience time. We don't experience math. But we can experience God. We think about our boxes the way the world should be. We think we understand it because we're in our boxes, and this is how the world should be. That's what I've decided. I've got God right here with me in this box. Do you think? What if you could really feel God? But what if you had to get out of your box to do it? God is out here everywhere. There's no place God is not. But we have created these false partitions. We have reinforced our walls to keep ourselves safe. And in keeping ourselves safe, we are also separating ourselves from each other and the divinity within each one of the people that we meet. So, if you want to meet God, if you want to experience God, you have to get out of the box. And how do you do that? How do you get out of a box? Your box. Some of us get dumped on our heads. Some of us make the declaration, I want to know God. I did that. And you know what happened? I got dumped on my head. I made the declaration that I was going to go to ministerial school. And I set up my C classes and I was ready to roll. The weekend that I was due to go to my first C classes, my husband has to have surgery for metastatic melanoma. And then 10 days later, he has a heart attack. And then 10 days after that, my brother dies. Now, I don't tell you that to make you uncomfortable. I tell you that to see how God turns your life upside down. And boy, did he ever. And boy, did I learn from that. Wow, what an experience. What an amazing experience. But I had to get out of my box to get past the fear and the doubt and the pain and the anger and the frustration. I had to get out of my box. Now, y'all don't have to go through all of that. All you C students who are here today, who I'm very grateful for, by the way, you don't all have to do that if you declare that you're going to become a minister. You can do it an easier way. Close your eyes for a minute and imagine the cardboard box of your childhood. And how would you feel for the sides of that box? You would reach out. You would reach out for the sides of those boxes, right? You would reach out for it and you would try to feel it. So that's how you get out of your box. You feel. Every time your box gets bumped, you have a chance to weaken your walls, to maybe even take down a wall or two. When you get bumped, feel. Feel your walls shaking. When you feel your walls shaking, it's not because somebody bumped you. It's not because they did something to you. It's because Spirit is trying to wake you up. It's Spirit saying, hey, you, pay attention. In here, in your box. Own it. Own the feeling. Be mindful. We can point fingers and we can blame, but it's your walls that are making you feel the way you feel. Read the writing on the walls. You wrote it. Now you get to read it. What non-serving beliefs are shaking you up? I had some fabulous, I still do, but I've got a couple that I've gotten rid of that I'm going to share with you, of non-serving beliefs. One of them is my defensiveness. Oh, man. Major reinforcement of my box. And starting school, that first year, that first term, oh my gosh. They wanted me to write 20-page papers. I hadn't done that in 25 years. What the heck? Come on, that's ridiculous. You can't expect me to do that. Come on. And on top of that, it was Dr. Tom that I had to write the paper for. And Dr. Tom, oh man, he's scary to a girl like me. Yeah. So I went to blame. It's their fault that I'm so tired. It's their fault that I feel this way. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. Blah, 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 blah. And you know, after a while, I got tired of doing that because it really wasn't getting me anywhere. I was getting more tired and more frustrated, but it wasn't serving any good purpose. So after some introspection, yeah, we do a lot of that here at ministerial school, and I recommend that you do some at home also. I realized that it was all about me. It was my fears. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't talented enough. And I think on a subconscious level, I didn't even think I was big enough to do this job. I was still that little girl. But it was time for me to grow up, put on my big girl panties, and let go of some of this stuff. I could have backed away from my walls, and I could have stayed in my box. But I explored what I felt, and I explored the fallacy of all those beliefs that I had. And with that exploration, I softened the walls of my box. Some of the reinforcements started loosening up. And remember when you used to play in those boxes, how after a while the reinforced corners started giving out and the box kind of started doing this kind of thing, and it just got softer, and it was kind of easy to kind of maybe peek out over the top or climb out around the corner. The box got softer. And you know, when I did that, I found out that this school was the safest place I have ever been in. And that Dr. Tom, he's really a very sweet, kind man. Secret's out, honey. So the point is, we are seldom upset for the reasons that we think we are. What happens when we get bumped, or when we bump up against something or someone that makes us uncomfortable, we actually become triggered. Start shaking, the box starts shaking. Oh my gosh, something's happening. Sure, you might have been wronged, but the feeling is often a reflection of something that goes far deeper than just the bump that hit you. God works in mysterious ways. In Matthew 7:3, it says, "Do not judge so that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you make, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' while the log is in your eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, then you will clearly see to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye." We've heard this before, haven't we? For with the judgment you make, you will be judged. Blame someone else, and you make yourself a victim. The measure you give will be the measure you get. How many of you have gotten angry, so angry that you kicked a wall or threw a dish and it broke? And then the result of that was you broke your toe, you had to clean up the dish. It's never worth the response that you have to react to that anger or the frustration. In the measure you give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye but not notice the log in your own? Why do we do that? Because it's easier. It's safer to stay in our box. It's safer to not examine the walls. But when you take the log out of your own eye, when you remove that piece of unserving belief, you're going to cry. Trust me, you're going to cry. It hurts when you take a big old log out of your eye. It hurts when you have to look inside yourself and feel the anger and the frustration or the fear or the doubt. But when you cry, what happens to cardboard when you cry? Think about it, it melts, right? That box is getting wobblier and less rigid. It's more easy to peek out over the top. You see more clearly. There's magic in this. And I'm telling you that because I know it, because I've done it. It doesn't just change you. When you go deep down into who you are, all the pieces, all the non-serving beliefs, all the they shoulds and they and the I can't and I won'ts, when you get down into that, when you choose to change that, there's a quantum shift. It's not piece for piece. Your whole world changes. Suddenly you're a different person. And suddenly that person that bumped into you, it's not such a great big deal. It's just a little speck. And I can compassionately go to that person and take out the speck, talk about the speck, without bringing all my anger and my frustration and making that big speck, or that little speck, into a big log. It's kind of like the butterfly effect. You know, when you go inside yourself and you fix yourself, you do this, what you think is this little thing, and it changes your world. And when each of us choose to change our world, we can change the whole world. Really, seriously, I believe that. So you've got to get off the shore and into the river. So you've got to start looking and crying and moving around and allowing and being. And that box is going to begin to melt. And as that box melts, you're going to be able to get a little bit closer to the edge of the river. And then you're going to fall into the river. And that river is that divine flow. It's divine order. It's that stuff that we talk about all the time, that we experience in little pieces here and there. Oh my gosh, I saw this happen and this happened and this happened. I know God's in this. That's divine flow. In that river of divine flow, we get divine ideas. When we move out of our box, that is so restricting. And all we can see is what's in here. We can see what's out there, finally. And we can receive divine ideas, truly divine, world-changing ideas. And then we get to really be God expressing in the world. Oh, isn't that what we all want to do, really? But we don't get to do it any easy way. It's a choice that we have to make day after day after day. But we no longer have to drag our boxes around with us because we have fallen into the divine flow. And sure, once in a while we're going to bump up against the edges. We're going to get stuck in the bushes. But now we know, oh yeah, I got to go in here. I got to stop blaming the bush. It's in here. I'm going to look in here because I know I can find it in here. I know God's in here and I know God's out there. And I just want to make that connection with all the God. Even Jesus had his boxes. You know, Jesus went into his box in Gethsemane. You know the place. He had fear and he had doubt. But he knew where he was going because he kind of remembered way more than we ever do about where he came from. And he did know what his purpose was. So you look at your stuff and you claim it and then you surrender it. That's what Jesus did with big, giant exclamation points. He didn't blame anyone. He certainly could have. I mean, there was a lot of people out there who just really were just riding him. But he gave up his box to show us how to do it. And that's how we move to Christ consciousness. It's going to be uncomfortable. That's what we say. It's a euphemism for it's going to hurt. But it hurts so good. Even in that pain of realizing that I've got to let go of this now. Even in that anger, when you can remember, you can go, oh yeah, God's working in me. Spirit's working in me now. When we let ourselves feel the pain and we connect that pain with our box, when we cry our tears and soften our box, we can get to the edge of the river. And like I said, we can fall in there and there'll be more melting. And we will be in the river. And we will converge with our one source. So get out of the box. Come on, guys. Get out of the box. I invite you, I encourage you, I implore you to explore yourself, explore your box, embrace whatever's written on the walls. Embrace it and then decide what you want to do with it. But allow whatever's on those walls to serve you, not in reinforcing your isolation from the rest of the world, but in connecting with what that oneness truly is in the world. And I can promise you when you do that, you will experience Source. You will experience God. You will experience God not as a knowing, but as an experience in community with people. You will change communities. You can change situations because you've got God flowing. You are in the flow. And you will find your purpose in life. And that is truly all of us expressing God in the world. Thank you so much for sharing this with me today. And now what I'd like to do is have you just take a deep breath. Just get yourself lined up for a little bit of meditation. And I invite you to hear your words as my words. My words as your words. So I take a deep breath. And I breathe into my body, my soul. I breathe into my box. I allow my body to be supported by the chair. And I realize that I am more than my body. I become aware of the boundary that is my skin, surrounding me, encasing me. I become aware of my walls. For just a moment, I imagine that my true self doesn't stop at my skin. My true self doesn't stop at my walls. And I am safe. I allow my walls to melt. I allow my skin to melt. I am one with Source, God, universal power. Any of my puny walls are unnecessary, for I know the grace and power of God are the only protection I need. Fear is released as I sink into the holy awareness of my rightful place in an abundant universe. I am joy. I am love. I am peace. I am abundance. I am wholeness. I am the void. ever so gently, I come back to the room. I become aware of my boundary of my skin, my body. I'm aware of the chair supporting me. But I hold that awareness of that oneness. For that is who I am. I hold in my heart the awareness that my body, my boundaries, whatever they are not who I am. I am a child of God. I am a divine expression of the Most High. I am free. I am one. I am out of my box.